Alright, so RICOH GR3 versus Fujifilm X100v. Which one is the better camera for you? So because I have both these cameras and I've made videos with both these cameras, I get a lot of questions recently on my DMs about which one would I recommend for people to buy. And first of all, I'm just gonna say I love both these cameras. That's why I have both of them. That's why I haven't sold one of them yet. So you can't really go wrong with either. But of course, you gotta decide which one you buy. So this video is just gonna be a simple comparison and you know, kind of a review of my experience with both cameras, and then determining which part of the cameras you value more, you can hopefully make an informed decision on which one is the better purchase for you. And also on the case of RICOH, there's two different models of the RICOH. They're essentially the same except that one has 28mm focal length equivalent lens and the other one has a 40mm focal length equivalent of a lens, so a bit more telephoto on the other one. So the first one is the RICOH GR3, the second one is the RICOH GR3X. The Fujifilm X100v has a 35mm focal length equivalent, so it's somewhere in the middle of those two. I have the 28mm original RICOH GR3 because I just like the wider angle model for this type of shooting, because I often use this in addition to a camera that might have a slightly more telephoto lens as well, because it's the perfect B camera. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there. I've had the RICOH for about 15 months at this point, and the Fujifilm a much shorter time, about 3 or 4 months. But anyway, long enough that I know the quirks of these cameras so far. So let's just get into it. First of all, the size difference is still significant, even though both these are small cameras, but the RICOH is just a little bit smaller, making it much more versatile and much easier to bring with you. Neither of these cameras are difficult to bring with you, but the RICOH comfortably fits into a man's pocket, whereas the Fujifilm X100v fits in a pocket in a pinch, but it's gonna make you feel uncomfortable. It's a little bit too big for a pocket, unless you really need to stuff it there for like 2 minutes during a shoot. But the RICOH genuinely is smaller than a phone and can just be put in a pocket. You don't even have to bring a bag when you go and shoot with this. The Fujifilm, you know, it's still much more of a full camera. The lens sticks out a lot more and just a tiny bit larger, making it a little bit less comfortable in that sense. Another point about the form factor, the ergonomics. Neither of these cameras is the best to hold because they've been optimized for small size, but the Fujifilm especially would really benefit from having a grip, because when I shoot with this for a long time, my lower fingers, my pinky gets kind of tired and irritated because it's just not comfortable to hold. On the other hand, the RICOH is so small that I don't have a problem with the lack of grip, even though you could buy a grip for both these cameras. But then again, I feel like that would kind of go against the purpose of having a super small camera. Anyway, moving on, the next point, we're going to talk about the stealth effect. Because the RICOH is such a inconspicuous, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Because the RICOH is such a, it doesn't look like anything at all. It looks like a point and shoot from 2005. It's the stealthiest camera out there. So if you're in an area where, you know, people don't like their pictures to be taken, the RICOH is the best solution for that. Or if you want to go to an event that doesn't allow professional cameras, this one can slip through pretty easily. But the Fujifilm actually looks like a proper camera. It still looks like a casual camera, and objectively it's much more beautiful than the RICOH, but it's much more noticeable, especially if you get the silver version. Do you value beauty? Do you value stealth? There's your one of the answers. If you like to shoot video, you can't really shoot video with the RICOH GR3 at all. Now there's a button for shooting video on the RICOH, and I've pressed it twice, and the reason I don't press it anymore is because it does such a bad job that it might as well not be there. I mean, my cell phone from 2019, my Samsung Note 10, does better video, and it doesn't really do good video at all. So it just doesn't make sense to use this for any kind of video shooting. But the Fujifilm X100v actually shoots really good video for what it is, and especially compared to the RICOH, which doesn't shoot video at all. It shoots 4K 24 FPS and 30 FPS and 180p 60 FPS, and you can also make it look really good in camera already, because you can select picture profiles and do all kinds of edits directly into the profile in the Fuji system, which is one of the biggest benefits of shooting Fuji. Autofocus again goes to the Fuji X100v. It's not the best autofocus in the world, but it's serviceable, it does its job well. Whereas the RICOH sometimes struggles, especially when focusing close or when focusing in low light. But RICOH knows that they suck, so therefore they have a snap focus, like an extra feature where you can code a certain predetermined focus distance into a button, so that you can do sort of preset back button focusing. You press, for example, the FN button and you get a focus in 2 meters. But if you try to do autofocus in 2 meters when you're moving, it's probably not going to work. The autofocus is not the best. But at the same time, it hasn't really prevented me from shooting because I know that the autofocus is bad, and just the fact that I know that it's bad allows me to anticipate a little bit more and I can work with it. So it's not the worst deal, but you know, don't expect Sony A7 capabilities out of neither of these cameras, especially the RICOH. Both these cameras are serviceable enough in low light, both are APS-C sensors, both do reasonably well. The X100v has a lens that goes all the way down to f2 if you stop it down. The RICOH only goes down to f2.8, so already there's one stop of light. And I feel the X100v sensor is just a little bit better in low light than the RICOH GR3. This is just based on my experience shooting both these cameras. I haven't really checked official data or comparisons or whatever, but just what I feel, and I think that is the case. At the same time though, the Fujifilm X100v doesn't have IBIS, the RICOH has IBIS. If you're shooting people and you're trying to freeze subjects, you're limited by shutter speed anyway, but if you're not, if you're shooting landscapes, cityscapes, whatever, this thing can go, the RICOH GR3 can go pretty low on the handheld shutter speeds, whereas the Fujifilm X100v is limited to maybe 1/60th of a second and 1/30th, but then you really have to be careful. Also with the IBIS, you're gonna have shaky video, so you can only do, like, you have to be really still and then use warp stabilizer in post or stabilize it in post in some way if you really want to do video with the X100v, but at least you can do video. On RICOH you can't really, there's no point. Like I said before, battery again goes to the X100v. I've done long shoots with this one and never really got in trouble with the battery life. It comfortably lasts 3 to 4 to maybe 5 hours. The RICOH GR3 lasts like an hour. I have 2 batteries for it. The battery life definitely is the biggest weakness of the GR3, maybe 1.5 hours, but still, like, I've gotten into problems with the battery running out, especially when I only had 1 battery. So if you're gonna get the RICOH GR3, buy an extra battery immediately, because you're not gonna have a good time if you don't. But that's just the price of having a tiny camera. The battery is so small, it couldn't be any bigger, or the camera would be bigger and then it would be uncomfortable in the pocket. So you can't have your cake and eat it too in this case. And I think the last point that I'm going to mention, the RICOH can actually do double exposures. So can the Fujifilm, both in camera, and it's a really cool interface. You can see the overlap of the first picture on both these cameras on the back of the camera when you take a double exposure. But the RICOH is slightly better in my opinion because it does a DNG, and the Fujifilm just does a JPEG, and then you take 2 RAWs, but then you have to go into post and recreate it anyways if you want to do more adjustments. But that's a fun feature that both these cameras have. Both these are great cameras. So yeah, I think the verdict there is that the X100v is a better overall camera. However, if I could only have one of them, I would actually still go for the RICOH. And again, the first reason that I mentioned is very significant to me. The ability to just slip this into the pocket when you go out is potentially underrated when you compare all those other shortcomings of the RICOH to the X100v. To me, the X100v is a more proper full camera. But here's the thing, I already have other cameras that can do an amazing job shooting pictures and videos. But I don't have a camera that is this small that can still do a great job and be this stealthy. So while I love the X100v, just the versatility that the RICOH offers from being so small and so stealthy is so valuable to me. There's always room in the bag to slip this in. Like, let's say that I'm shooting film, I'll just put this into my side pocket of my jacket or my bag and just leave it there. But I couldn't do that with the Fuji because it would stick out too much and be too uncomfortable. So I would end up bringing the RICOH more often when I'm taking like an extra camera, or let's say that I'm going on a walk, not with the purpose of taking photos. I don't really want to bring a camera because of the extra bulk. I'm still probably going to bring the RICOH GR3 though. But the Fuji, even though the difference is so small, it's so significant in the size. And to be honest, despite the Fuji having such famous picture profiles, I like the files out of the RICOH more. Maybe it's because I've had it for longer, but I find them easier to edit. I find they look slightly better. And to me, the RICOH is so awesome for casual photography that I would keep this. Actually, at the moment, I kind of have too many cameras. I've been thinking about just selling everything else and getting one really good Sony, this Sony A1, then getting rid of all my other digital cameras and just keeping this, the RICOH GR3. Now, on the other hand, and if I only wanted to have one camera for like 2 weeks of travel and I couldn't bring anything else, I would honestly probably pick the X100v because it's such a versatile camera with more features and just does a better job. You don't need an extra battery necessarily, or if you do, they last much longer, and it can do so many things better than the GR3 can't, that if I had to pick a main camera, the X100v is just gonna do a better job. Hopefully that answers your questions. Just remember not to think about it too much because you can't really go wrong with either. They're both great cameras, both really fun to use. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.